welcome to our open book. And let me ask our technical crew. I think it's only right that Allison's image should be 50 times larger than mine, but is there something we should do?
I think you're okay, but
I think you're okay too, Maggie, but is there?
from where I can see it, it looks. I think what you're seeing versus what's happening on the internet is different, but I will confirm that
All right.
information for us.
We're here with our friend Allison Epstein, who joins us from Chicago, and she's written just a wonderful novel, Fagin the Thief, which explores the origin story and the backstory of one of literature's most famed uh, pickpockets and rapscallions. We were able to introduce it on our show last week by, I'm going to try my Ron Moody imitation now, Allison, if that's all right.
Oh, I can't wait.
Singing is Fagin. In this life, one thing counts in the bank. Large amounts. I'm afraid these don't grow on trees. You've got to pick a pocket or two. And you told us thank you very much. You told us
Beautiful.
that was your initial interest in Fagin and Dickens.
It was, yeah. I've always been a Broadway musical theater kid, and so I was introduced to Oliver! The musical when I was very young, and just, I mean, that performance by Ron Moody and then other adaptations after, it grabs your attention and it will not let you go. It's really incredible. So I loved that character when I was young, and then realized what Dickens wanted to do with the original character was something not that at all.
Yeah, well, let me get you to talk about that because you have filled in the backstory, but even at the time, there were criticisms to which Dickens responded that his characterization of Fagin was anti-Semitic.
There were, yeah. Very quickly after publication, Dickens started receiving letters from readers, both people who thought that maybe the villainous nature of characters like Bill Sikes might have been exaggerated, people who didn't quite believe his personification of Nancy, but also people who wrote in at that time in the 1830s to say, the way you wrote the character of Fagin, that's a little off, isn't it, Dickens? There's something about the way you're portraying your only Jewish character you've ever written that's really, even back then, was raising flags for people.
Mm. Why did you want to give Jacob Fagin a backstory?
There's something so compelling about what Dickens did give us in the character of Fagin. He's captivating to me, even though he's not fully realized. You call him a rapscallion, and he is. He's just charming, but also terrifying. And
Yeah.
I love that character, but there's so much more that could be done with him. There's an entire story behind him that we just never get to see. Dickens has him sort of rise out of the shadows fully formed, and I just wanted to play the story out and think, how does a person like that come to be? There's a story there that Dickens he told a very different story. He didn't tell that one, so I wanted to know what that was.
Well, tell us about this little boy, Jacob Fagin, growing up in an Isle of London called Stepney. Well, let me get you to talk about it. Grimy and squalid and poverty.
Yeah. My book begins with Jacob Fagin when he's about 6 or 7, living in sort of a tenement house in Stepney in East London with his mother. She's a single mother raising him sort of in a small Jewish community that's really poverty-stricken, but also very tight-knit. It's the sort of community where everybody knows everybody and everyone knows everybody's business, which was very familiar to me. But my character Fagin, as he's growing up there, is just the one thing he has in life is his mother. That's his anchor to this community. It's his whole world at that point. And so he's trying to think of a way that he can sort of step out on his own without necessarily, deeply disappointing his mother. But that's not necessarily something he succeeds at.
Yeah. He studies daily with a rabbi, but he really studies with a pickpocket, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. He has 2 different educations, and I'd say he enjoys one of them much more than the other. He finds a pickpocket out in the street to sort of teach him the ropes, which, as he grows older, is something he then starts to do to other kids that he runs into.
Why does his mother take him to see an execution? I know it was a different time and place, but
It was. I mean, there's two reasons for it, and one is the time and place of it in 19th century London, and before and for to some extent after. That was your entertainment. We didn't have YouTube, we didn't have Twitter. What we had then was public hangings, and so that was sort of your day out. Was you
My
go to
gosh, that
Newgate
had
and you see
the
what criminal is.
resemblance hadn't occurred to me until now, but it's quite apt. But yes,
Yeah, sometimes you log onto social media and you're like, oh, I get it. This is what they were going for.
yeah,
But in the context of the novel, Jacob's father was hanged as a thief, and he was hanged before Jacob was born, so he never met his father. But his mother sees him going sort of on the same path. This is my son going to fulfill the same destiny as his father, and she wants to show him, if you don't change what you're doing, this is what the world has in store for you.
yeah. And then his mother leaves, doesn't she? Well, his mother departs. His mother dies.
Yeah. Yeah, when he's 16, and so there's a whole life ahead of him, and really no one who particularly cares about him in that moment. He's faced with a whole world in front of him, and no one to guide him forward. So he has to kind of make his own way from there.
Yeah. What does he say to himself at one point? Do I eat today, or do I go to work, or do I eat today?
Yeah, there's no choice. You have to decide. Okay, the crime is how I'm going to get out of this. Crime is how I'm going to make my way forward, and so I'm going to be the best thief that's ever been. And that's sort of consciously or not, what he sets out to do.
As my wife will tell you, I loathe the overuse of the word community these days. But but do tell us about this. I think we can fairly call them a community that Fagin begins to bring in uh, of youngsters from a background and circumstance not dissimilar from his own.
Yeah, I do think of them in a way sort of as his replacement family. Once his mother is gone, he starts to build sort of his own chosen family of people. And so as he grows older and becomes more established on his own as a thief, he starts encountering children who are in a similar situation that he was when his mother passed away, where you have to learn how to steal and be the best at it, or there is no life moving forward for you. And so he takes a sort of satisfaction in bringing those kids in and teaching them, showing them sort of how he did what he was able to do. And there's a sense of, I think, identification in that. He sees them and sees, oh, I wish I had had someone who could help me the way that I'm helping this person.
Yeah. We have a
We
question
have a
coming in from our
question
viewers.
from S.R. O'Brien. What other Dickens characters are ripe for the backstory treatment?
That is a great question. One I've always wanted to read is Madame Defarge from The Tale of Two Cities.
Mais oui.
Hey, oui. My wife is French, and feels a great sense of personal identification with
so
Madame Lafarge.
No, not at all. But I am very impressed with her knitting skills.
I love an ominous woman knitting in the background, and I want to know everything about her. So if anyone out there wants to write that book for me, I'm here for it.
What about an ominous woman running the technical side of a video broadcast?
That would work too.
Yeah. I guess we could update it, couldn't we? Knitting and run. Oh my word! I think I suggested to you what Lady Macbeth, the real story, or something
Yes.
like that. Yeah.
I would read that as well.
Yeah. Doing this book, letting your imagination run through Dickens' characters once again, sharpened your appreciation for Dickens, didn't it?
It did, yeah. I was an English major in college, and I think it's a prerequisite to be an English major that you have at least some awe of Dickens. He's one of the greats for a reason. But as I started to kind of like settle into him, I don't like to say in a peer relationship. I do not think of myself as a peer to Dickens, but I was thinking of it writer to writer, seeing what he was able to do in his books and what I wanted to do in mine. And it just really emphasized for me how incredible he is at painting an entire world. There's nothing he leaves out of his books in many ways. There are some things on the character side that I thought he may have left out, but in the painting of a full society, he brings London to life in a way that is incredible,
Yeah.
and is part of the reason why he's still read all these hundreds of years later.
And we should remind ourselves he was writing it under a particular flurry of deadlines, wasn't he?
Yes, which I could relate to as well, as my editor was setting me deadlines, and I would think, oh, this must be what it was like for Dickens at 2 in the morning, and it's due tomorrow, and I'm not done yet. So
And would I be a sentimental fool to intuit a certain sense of did the street urchins, as they were known, that Fagin brought together to do his bidding, after all, in his business, was there a kind of paternal reflex in his actions too?
I think there was. I don't think he would have admitted it if you were to
Yeah.
ask him that himself. I think he would have been horrified to think that there was something affectionate in his treatment of the kids that worked for him, but I do think so. I think there's a protective nature to him, and I think it takes a particular kind of person to make that the way that you go about crime, bringing in children who have nowhere else to go and giving them somewhere to live and taking care of them. That's not the most efficient way to make a life of crime. You could start robbing banks, but the fact that you're taking care of someone else as you're doing it, I think does show what was important to him, whether he admitted it or not.
Yeah. And I know you are loath to talk about it, but you're on to the next project already.
I am. I'm starting to think through what the next book will be, which is always a deeply terrifying point in the process. I'm heavy into research right now, so it's just reading as much as I can until I feel like I'm ready to start writing.
Okay. Well, thank you. It's just a wonderful book, Fagin the Thief by Allison Epstein. And I think, by the way, particularly those of us who love great cities, London or Chicago, this is, and both, in the case of our family, this is a particularly resonant novel. That great cities don't get there without the human stuff inside of them at all levels. And this was just great to read that. So thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight on our open book. Tomorrow night.
That's right.
Tomorrow is a very certain special day. We will be doing the promo for our program, and then Saturday we'll have the essay in the studio early in the morning. So thanks very much for being with us tonight on our open book, and thanks to our guest Allison Epstein. And
Thank
see
you.
you later. Take care.